Hello, this is Markability with Paracontrarian, where we protect content creators. We ensure that they can publish, expose, and monetize their work so that dissident voices shall not be silenced. Today I'm sharing an interview with Matt Raymer of ContentSafe, who is also working on a variety of other efforts to protect content creators and promote liberty. Much of the interview is biographical information as Matt gives his background on how he got where he is today. But along the way, we talk about a lot of different projects, including, of course, ContentSafe, where he includes new capabilities that are under development for that platform, CensorGuard, Time Safari, Quartal, XMPP using JMP chat, non-TCP comms with low-power CPUs, maintaining your own stores of data and curating shared data, a replacement for DNS, generally taking control of your own information infrastructure, and perhaps even building a better censorship-proof platform. Now, I'm sorry to say that Zoom and Ubuntu, which I'm running on this machine here, when I'm running Wayland, there's a compatibility issue. I was able to see Matt in the interview, and we tried to record video, but when you're running Wayland, apparently that video goes nowhere. So next time I know to use x.org. So this time we've got great audio. It's really valuable, I think. I'm going to go ahead and share it. You should probably just treat this as an audio-only podcast of Paracontrarian, and I believe it is incredibly valuable information and definitely worth sharing. So please share this with people you know, and make certain you go to paracontrarian.substack.com to get the most detail on what we're doing to help content creators. Thanks. With no further ado, let's get on with the interview. All right, today we're interviewing Matt Raymer with ContentSafe. And just to give a little bit of background on Matt, he's a alternate freedom community kind of guy, real liberty-minded person with 30 years of tech experience. And he's somebody who's been working for some time to protect content creators and has efforts in the works in the future to do more for that. And as I mentioned, he has created ContentSafe, which, full disclosure, I've been using for the past 13, 14 months or so. And it's been a very useful service. And just a quick summary, which is that ContentSafe is sort of, well, the way I've been using it is more or less just syndication. That's the only function I'm using right now. And what happens is that you post the video to one place, and ContentSafe will take that video and put it on other platforms for you, so you don't have to upload manually to each site. And with that, I should probably let you introduce yourself, Matt, and you can figure out what kind of detail you want to share.
Thanks, Mark. I guess it's nice, since this is a new audience, to kind of give an idea of my background. As I was joking before we started recording, that I really have to be concise because I've had a pretty eclectic life, and I tend to leave out things from my presentation because they just maybe not relevant to what I'm doing right now. I was born in Louisville, Kentucky, and I grew up in southern Indiana, and my parents were both, I guess you could say, at the tail end of the World War II generation. And I was born very late. My mom was almost 40 whenever she had me. So I was Gen X, but I wasn't raised by baby boomers. I was raised by World War II people. My dad actually did get drafted for World War II and was on the boat to the Pacific to island hop, and they dropped the bomb on Hiroshima. And he ended up, interestingly enough, he ended up in the Philippines and South Korea instead of going island hopping. And that means that they raised me, I would say pretty down the road, conservative, traditional Midwest attitude. But since I was the last child, my eldest brother had been a soldier in Vietnam and had died there. So I think that kind of set the stage for my dad being, let's say, anti-establishment. even though he was conservative, he was not a raw, go America sort of guy. In fact, I remember as a teenager getting swept up in the politics of the day and kind of cheering on the war thing. And my dad saying, "Don't ever do that." He said, "That's you don't want to ever cheer that. That's always bad." Um, so I grew up kind of, sort of, in my teenage years around a conspiracy-minded person, though me myself was very indoctrinated and very part of the club, I guess. I was one of the top students wherever I went, and I was really ambitious. My mom wanted me to do music, and I did music for a while, but I'm not that good at music. I appreciate it, but I'm not that good at it. So I got interested in the sciences. Now, my dad bought me my first computer when I was 13, and I actually started a company in 1985 that we were doing bulletin board software in assembly language. So I've been in the game a long time, but
Indeed.
you know how kids, yeah, you know how kids are. You do it for a year or so, you get tired of it, and then you move on to something else. And I got interested in the sciences, and I ended up going to university with physics, computer science, and math. So I triple majored. I'm published in biophysics, computational biophysics as an undergraduate, and my papers still get quoted to this day. I noticed what got quoted a few weeks ago. Uh, the I went on to graduate school in physics. I was going to do computational solid state, and I decided, I was doing really well, but I didn't kind of burned out. I really burned out hard. So I got a master's in computer science, which I said was a lot easier than physics, and is true. It's a lot easier than physics. Um, no quantum mechanics to worry. Well, at least it used to be there was no quantum mechanics to worry about in computer science, but now there is. Uh, and it's funny, to this day, I'll have someone bring up this quantum computing thing. It's like, yeah, I was actually reading in that in the 90s. So I know nonsense whenever I hear nonsense. But I remember this is kind of one of those seminal events that I think in the future would lead to content safe. We were in a National Science Foundation grant program, and we got the internet at our university in 93. And I remember one of my database professors coming in one day and saying, "This internet can't remain open. It has to be censored." It's like 93.
Wow.
Yeah.
He was way ahead of the curve.
Yes, he was,
In an
but
authoritarian way.
in an authoritarian way. Yeah. And I remember thinking, no, I like this open internet. This is a great thing. Being basically a child whenever the internet started. I was only 23, 24 whenever the internet was made public. So I was swept up in the whole open source, open society thing. So real forward, I ended up in Southeast Asia. I married a native to Southeast Asia, and we decided not to go back to the US. So I've raised a family here, and I've done a lot of different things, like trying to introduce websites in Southeast Asia in 1999 when no one knew what they were, and which is really hard, really hard. Uh, so I ended up in 2003 getting back in touch with some of my classmates, and a lot of them were already professionals. So they were giving me jobs, and that led into some projects in Britain. And that led into me working for about 10 years with a business partner in Britain, um, which got me exposed to corporate and government projects and understanding all of the yuckiness of that, which I think kind of solidified my distrust of everything corporate and everything government. I remember one of my gigs, it's quite a big gig, was with the patent office in the UK. And the guy I answered to was the head of IP enforcement for the whole country.
Hmm.
I think he was also head of enforcement for the European Union for a while, and I think he's in semi-retirement now. But I he was describing what policies that they had in mind, and I said, "Well, wouldn't that invade privacy?" And he says, "We don't care about privacy." He said that we don't care about privacy.
Yeah. Yeah, my time in the Air Force plus time working in the military industrial complex and some of it even in areas including like information warfare and stuff. I could definitely say that I've seen a lot of the yuckiness and a lot of the complete disregard for anybody's privacy or their right to even have their opinions. And
Hmm.
um, those experiences help mold both you and me um, into who we are today because we're both pushing. We both want privacy. We both want folks to be able to speak their
Well,
minds. And
I'll tell you, 1985, I was selling bulletin board software, and I sat in a meeting with a guy, another developer type, who was doing hospital software in 1985. And he was joking about reading people's medical records in 1985.
well, it,
That's why you have HIPAA now.
exactly.
Uh, and I don't even trust that. I can't trust the regulation. I have to trust the algorithm. That's my philosophy. Give me a secure algorithm over a regulation any day because regulations can have exemptions that
Mhm.
make it so if you don't have my private key, you can't read it.
Well, and regulations can easily sound really good and actually have very nefarious purposes.
That's right.
So,
They can shepherd you into something much worse in the disguise of safety.
yeah, whether
Yeah.
it's intentional or not, right? So,
I think
yeah.
most of it's intentional. I don't give them the benefit of the doubt anymore because, you know, as I've said with people like to say incompetence over malevolence. Like, I'm sorry, at some point, the difference between malevolence and incompetence, it doesn't matter anymore.
hmm Yeah, the
Uh,
coincidence is always there. They coincidentally always get it wrong. And to believe that would make you a coincidence theorist.
yes, that's right. That's right. And that is a term.
hmm Absolutely.
So 2018, uh, well, I had gotten kind of into the alt media around 2010, 2011, 2012, right around in there. Interestingly enough, because of Alex Jones, who the first time I heard him, I said, this guy's dangerous. And within 6 months, I was listening to him like, is he's got something here. This has got legs. And luckily for me, I migrated off into what I would call more rational, dispassionate discussions. So you got people like Richard Grove and James Corbett and a plethora of other very competent people who document their work and are more self-controlled. That's not to say that Alex doesn't do a wonderful job getting people awake. He does,
Right.
but
Right.
you can't stop there.
There's
You got
there
to move on.
yeah, with him there's not much of a filter for what you can actually prove or what you can actually find in the documentation that's available. But somebody like James Corbett, he'll cite everything, right? So, um,
Yeah.
well,
So that sorry that kind of got me interested in archiving data because I knew from my past experience that censorship was a likelihood. I was playing around with distributing content to BitTorrent and saving it locally and pulling it off of RSS feeds. Well, this all led up to 2018 with ContentSafe, where I was thinking, well, you've got all of these big platforms and you've got all of these small platforms like BitChute and Library at the time. there ought to be a way to automate distributing this stuff. And I actually had the first version of ContentSafe done uh, by someone else, and the doing large projects, I've developed a peculiar architectural habit, and that is that I begin by making things distributed. I don't begin by making things monolithic.
Hmm.
It makes the project harder, but at the same time, often undoing a monolithic architecture is, wow, it's going to be like 10 times the cost to undo the monolithic architecture into something distributed. How do you do that piecemeal? It's very hard. So I looked at the first version. We used it for about 6 months. And I said, every time that we want to fix something or change something, the whole system has to go down. Sorry, no, we're going to reboot this thing and make it all distributed. So I took over development about 90% at that point. I had one guy helping me, but it, you got to be actually pretty much on your game to stay pace with me. And I ended up letting the last developer go at the beginning of last year, and everything's been pretty much 100% me until recently. I'm actually got 5 candidates that I'm looking at to hire on a job by job basis. Um, and they look good. And they all came about because of James Corbett.
Okay, I was going to ask if it was a result of your appearance on Corbett Report right before New Year's.
Yeah. I tell you, he helped me at the beginning of 2023. He helped me bring in a bunch of new clients. Then at the end of 2023, he helped me get some candidates to help me with further development. And so far I've been very happy with all of the people who've approached me. They've got that one criteria: you have to really believe in alt media to work with me. Because you try to work with someone who doesn't really understand the significance of what you're doing, it affects what they write.
Yeah, you need somebody with sort of a contrarian mindset who says, hey, the normie way of thinking is not for me. And, you're very countercultural. Also, I didn't realize there was a lot of decentralization to how you've built ContentSafe. I really don't know anything about the architecture. I'm just a user, but that's very countercultural when we've got big tech that's been centralizing things more and more over time. And really, the path forward, if tech is going to work for us, it needs to be more decentralized, and people need to have less control over what we're doing.
That's right, and that's been my passion as far as side projects that I get involved with. Uh, One of my side projects, you're also involved. Actually, I think you're almost involved in all my side projects. Uh,
A
one
little
of them is
disclosure
the
for people. Yeah. Yeah, we've been talking for a while about a lot of things.
CensorGuard is one that I'm involved in, and I know that Tom Tom wants me more involved in it. I'm a bit behind on that, but oh, see, that's sweet. See, this is what Mark and I are talking about, is the ability for us to control our own information infrastructure. Now, one of our other friends who will not be named at present uh, it has got even more ambitious plans with secure non-TCP encrypted communication and humongous data stores and low power CPUs. In fact, sometime off call, we need to talk about that. I did some number crunching on his ideas over the holidays. I'm like, whenever he presented the idea to me, I was like, that you can't do that. That's not possible. And, and then the more I crunched the numbers, like, no, actually, you could do this. The
Wow.
tech
Okay.
power consumption on devices, some of these ARM based systems,
Mm-hmm.
you'd be amazed how what their wattage is like. It's just insignificant amount of
Minuscule.
wattage at full. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. They can
So
be pretty amazing.
imagine being able, and I don't think I'm giving away too much here, but imagine being able in everyone's home to have, and this is what I imagine the future being like, by the way, having all the data that you would need to educate yourself, educate your children, and maintain your home. Everything's inside your house. All the data's there. And then you have secure, multi-layered firewalls to protect your data. And
Mm-hmm.
then you broker communication and sharing of information between trusted parties.
Wow.
See,
Yeah.
that's the way the internet should work.
Yeah. There's probably a case for being somebody who has compiled what you think is the best information and help guiding other people to it as well, helping
Mm-hmm.
curate information. And
Well,
that's something that's become more and more of a lost art, but at the same time, a lot of good stuff has been taken down over the past few years, right?
mm-hmm.
So,
And you look at the other project, Time Safari, which I can pitch Time Safari. It's in
hmm,
MVP right now. Did I mention Time Safari to you?
I'm not aware of that one.
It is a distributed identity system. Now, the goal of Time Safari is self-sovereign identity. The idea of self-sovereign identity is I control the information about me, and only people I give permission to can have access to that information. So a Time Safari is a simple, a modular approach to a piece of that puzzle. It's all about sharing of resources. So it's an app built using distributed identities and crypto and other types of cryptography to arrange, like, I commit this much time to this project for you.
Oh, so it involves payment systems and that sort of thing too.
It can. At the moment, it doesn't really have anything built into it for payments, but you can put in a unit and say, I'm going to give you so many Litecoin for this, or I'm going to give you so many minutes for this. We, my philosophy and the driver behind this, it's not my project. It's Trent's project, and it, the driver behind this is we want to make everything modular. We don't want to be everything for everybody. We want to build interoperable systems
Hmm. Mm-hmm.
because I think that that's the way it should be done. You shouldn't try to be Facebook. You
Right.
should try to be something for a specific industry or a specific task, and don't get more ambitious than that.
So that's another dimension to measure something instead of just is it centralized or decentralized? Is it also trying to do everything, or does it cooperate with other systems in order to get the job done? And hopefully over time we can build up a library of these systems where we can do everything we want to do, right? Um,
Right.
as you're aware with Paracontrarian, what we really want to do is we want to make sure that first people can get published, second, that their stuff can be found. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
if you search, you need to be able to find it. And then number three is they need to be able to monetize. And there's actually it would take a pretty good infrastructure to make all that happen, even though two out of those three items we would be built by our common friend, I believe, with what he's trying to do. And then there are also systems out there like Quartal, which could
Yes.
potentially do all three. It might be worth asking, whether what you think about Quartal. Have you tried Quartal?
I,
Have you looked at that at all?
I've tried installing it and it kind of fell to the wayside with all the other stuff I've got. But I've talked with the what's the guy's name at Portal?
Oh, I have to look him up. Let's see.
I've talked to him twice, and I love the guy's philosophy. I love the way he looks at the problem,
Mm-hmm.
and the
Mm-hmm.
fact that he has a cryptocurrency, but he never plans to ever list it on a stock exchange.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
His approach is that no, this is for inside the network. I heard his recent interview with Ernest Hancock, with Ernie. And that really got me sold on it. And actually, I just loaded it on one of my machines here, and I'm going to be playing around with it in the near future. So, preview of things to come. I'll definitely be covering that in addition to this other system our
Well,
friend
I
and
should,
you are building, right?
we should really, I should really get back into Quartal. Because like I said, I really believe in what the guy's trying to do. Uh, there are some weaknesses in Quartal that I think CensorGuard can overcome.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, the storage mechanism in Portal is limited in size. It's only 500 MB. That's too
Yeah.
small. We need multi terabytes. We don't need just MB. We need petabytes. Uh, and mass storage. Uh, Petabyte storage is still pricey, um, but it's going to get cheaper.
Oh, here we
My
go.
question. Mhm. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm just saying I probably have his name right here with Jason Crow. That's the guy you're
Ah,
talking about,
yeah.
right?
Mhm. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Jason. Yeah. And well, my question as far as CensorGuard is concerned and other systems that try to interoperate, because the he who shall not be named has a technology that he claims can go faster, up to 4 times faster than TCP.
Cool.
I actually asked for a demo. I'm like, okay, let's see what that looks like.
Wow. And is it
Oh,
something where we can
yeah.
open up the ports and do it with existing hardware and existing infrastructure?
Supposedly, the way I actually talked to him and the developer that did it, and it sits between your router and your internet cable.
Hmm, that's interesting.
Encrypts everything.
Oh,
3-party keys. In other words, you got to have all 3 parts of the system to know what's going on in the line.
that's nice. That's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, then what happens is your ISP is left in the role of your job is to move data from A to B and stay the hell out of it.
Right.
That's the right position for an ISP to be in instead of, oh, we're going to monitor what you're doing and report back to the NSA and whoever else has a connection, a line running out of the back room to some big vacuum cleaner system, and also be doing some degree of censorship or, that sort of thing. So, um,
My question is if you have a kind of, well, like the system with CensorGuard is an IPFS based appliance, which is essentially BitTorrent.
mhm,
It's essentially what it is.
yeah.
So, how many nodes? Because in BitTorrent, if I had 100 seeds of a file, I can get that, and I have a big enough pipe coming into my house. I could get a 10 GB file in minutes,
Hmm.
right? How
Absolutely.
many? So, do we need how many seeders in a network do we need to make everyone feel like they're watching YouTube? 1,000, 10,000, 100,000? I would be interested in seeing a simulation given an average or random bandwidth configuration. What would it look like for us to feel like it's YouTube?
How many people have to pin it on IPFS and how many people have to actually on Chordal, you just interact with it, right? If you interact with it, you're going to be keeping a local copy.
Mm-hmm.
I
Well, it's
think
the
to
same with
some extent.
IPFS.
Yeah. So
Same with IPFS.
the more it's
Yeah,
used, the more bandwidth is needed, the more bandwidth it gives you, right? Um,
right.
so if a bunch of people decide something goes viral, what do you know? I mean, it runs even faster.
Well, there are some bigger problems that I think will have to be addressed. Like, okay, are we going to be willing to give up the idea of metrics about a video?
Oh yeah.
Or can we make some sort of system that's very difficult to game? Because the problem with metrics, no matter how you do it, is they can be
Game.
gamed.
Yeah.
Look at Rumble view stats. That's been something over the last 6 months to a year that people were questioning the view count.
I wasn't
I don't
aware
know
of
if you
this.
noticed.
No.
I don't know if you noticed that they bifurcated that and they had raw and unique.
Okay.
If you're logged in as a content creator, you'll
Okay.
see two numbers for each video.
I should really look at the analytics sometime. But yeah.
And when one of my clients came to me and says, "What does this mean?" So I went and talked to he who shall not be named, and he said, that's left over from TV. Like, really? He said, yeah. In TV, they assume that the number of people sitting and watching it was times 3 or times 5. So whatever the view numbers are, they multiply it by the number of people in the house potentially.
Nobody does that anymore, though. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, back in the day when you watched
Apparently,
TV,
all of them
the whole
do it.
family gather around and say, "Hey, let's all sit down and watch, Battlestar Galactica or
Mhm.
what you name the show,
But
right?"
now everybody's got a phone in front of them and they're watching what they want to watch.
Yeah, no, yeah, yeah, and they're
Uh,
watching it at different times. They don't have to
Right.
synchronize and all sit down and watch it together. So
So that
that's
makes you
pretty
wonder.
bogus.
Yeah, it makes you wonder it, who's not doing this.
Good point. Good point.
I would bet you that
All of
I
it's
would bet you Twitter
inflated.
does it.
Yeah,
Well, let me get controversial here for a second.
go ahead.
Uh, I hear people say, and let me say, I'm torn on this because I understand that outlets like YouTube and Twitter are a lot of people go there. But in the case of Twitter, actually, only a certain segment of American society goes to Twitter.
Hmm.
So, who are you actually reaching whenever you tweet?
Or do we
You're
call
not,
it tweeting anymore?
or zinging. You know what I've heard it called? I've heard it called Twix.
I like that.
I like, yeah, me
Twitter,
too. I like
X, Twix.
Twix. But who are we actually reaching whenever we tweet something? Are you really reaching the people you want to be reaching? Honestly, I don't think so. I
Hard to
honestly don't
know.
think you're. Am I telling a content creator, drop your Twitter account? No, I'm not saying that.
No.
Go ahead and tweet, but understand that that demographic isn't necessarily the people that you want to reach or that you need to reach. You're not reaching the guy who collects your trash necessarily at your house. And depending on what your message is, you might actually want to be reaching quote unquote normal people with your message. You're probably more likely to reach those people with YouTube, maybe. But I remember working with someone 10 years ago whenever YouTube Red was a thing. I don't know if you remember YouTube Red.
I don't.
It was a code name for the pay version of YouTube.
Okay.
And I remember working with this guy, and he's like, "It'll be a cold day in hell whenever I pay for YouTube."
Well, look where it is today, right? Nobody's
Yeah, look,
paying.
yeah,
Yeah.
nobody's paying for it, and
I think
I honestly, go ahead.
I think I still get offers when I go on to YouTube from a platform I haven't used before. It says, "Hey, would you like to try some of our paid services?" You get some kind of message and you just automatically click and dismiss it. But it's like if you're at I don't know, a public machine somewhere or something you've just put together and you access YouTube, it always seems to pop up with that. Hmm. So there's
Yeah,
some
I get
remnant of it
it.
out there.
I get it every so often too, and they're like, "Oh, you can have a family plan for yeah, so you're gonna collect statistics on my family now." Uh, and my family's, all, they're kind of like me. It's like, well, I didn't search for this. All I did was say it up in the air, and all of a sudden, I got videos on my feed for this. I'm like, yeah, it's listening to you.
Oh yeah, I got into privacy in a big way. My first de-Googled phone was right after a friend of mine sits down in his wife's van one day and he sits down and puts a key in the ignition to start it up and looks down and says, oh, the check engine light's on. He's talking to his wife about, oh, what's going on? Are you aware of what's going on? Trying to check to see what she's aware of. How long has this been on? So they chat about it for a little bit. Next morning, he gets on Facebook. He had an iPhone in his pocket while he was doing this. Next morning, he goes on Facebook. Could you use help with check engine light? It was the first ad he saw. And that's when I realized, okay, there is really something to this. That is way too random for me to buy that was a coincidence. So since then, I've been playing with de-Googled phones at least.
Yeah, I tell you, I actually, except for watching YouTube videos or other types of videos around the house, I don't carry my phone outside of the house anymore.
Mm,
I go phoneless.
well, yeah. My next phone won't actually be a phone. I'll do a write up on this, but I found out that with XMPP, I can text, I could chat, I could create burner numbers, I could do all kinds of
Oh,
cool stuff with
nice.
running through it's called jmp.chat. They'll basically sell you phone numbers that connect to XMPP. And I found out with that, I don't need to own one of
Interesting.
these. I don't need to own it. Even if I've got family members who want to send me texts and stuff like that, I could do it. And my daughter, who's just moved to the UK, we just went ahead and set her up on the way out the door to make certain she had a way
That's
to make phone calls. We could just call her number. We're porting her number over. It's going to take a little bit of time, but we're going to port her current cell phone number over so we could text and call her no matter where she is because it'll use XMPP. So,
oh nice.
and you
I
don't
need to
know,
know more about this.
you
This
get it
is
without
cool.
the tracking, you get it without you could do it without even saying who you are. You just set up a Jabber account on one of these servers, and then you go to JMP and say, "Hey, I want to hook up a phone number to this," and you can pay with crypto if you want to.
Well, I wonder where these guys are registered out of. That's
They
interesting.
seem like Americans. I found an interview. I could share it with you later, but
Yeah, sure, sure.
there's an
I'm
interview. It's the
definitely interested.
Take Back Our Tech guy. Did an interview with some guys on it. I was hunting around for a solution, and I was just thrown I was I was just blown away because I thought this was something that really didn't exist, but then I found out XMPP's been around since 1998 or something like that, and that this JMP thing is more recent, but there are other people who've hooked it up to SIP and other technologies in the past. So anyhow, that's a little bit of a rabbit hole there, but I think it's very interesting. All cool.
No, I'm definitely gonna look into this. And I'm gonna give this over to my brother right now before I forget, because this is cool. He's had a problem migrating an old number. Huh, that's neat. That is neat, 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 neat.
Yeah, it's jmp.chat is what to look for.
Well, I'm looking at it and it's $5 a month. That is cool.
So my next phone will probably be a tablet, and I might just get like a mobile hotspot for when I don't have Wi-Fi access and just
Mhm.
connect through that. And the nice thing about that is all my stuff can go through a VPN. Nothing needs to be in the open.
Oh,
Nothing needs to be seen by the phone company. They don't need to know who I'm calling anymore. And they don't need to know, they'll know where my hotspot is when it's turned on, I'm sure, but that's about it. That's about all they'll know. It's on and data's coming and going. Like we
yep.
said about
That,
ISPs earlier, their job should be to
yep.
shovel stuff back and forth for you and stay the hell out of it.
Well, and the excuse will be to try to shut this all down is, well, bad people will do this. Well, I'm a firm believer that SIGINT is only useful after human intelligence has been gathered. Once, in other words, the bad guys will be met in the real, in the flesh. They're never going to be perfectly in virtual space.
Mm,
So, all human intelligence is primary over signals intelligence. So I don't think there's anything to worry about security by us
yeah.
having privacy.
Well, and the benefits outweigh the negatives.
Just
And the other thing is that it's the usual thing where people neglect that those people who are watching you are also human beings and they can abuse it, and they're likely to abuse it much more than the harm of them abusing that is going to be a lot worse than the benefits that it might ever pay off as far as safety.
studies of testosterone in both men and women. Testosterone spikes in people given authority.
Yep. Yep. Libido dominante, lust for power, but it's
Yeah,
self-feeding. Well, hey, would you like to talk more about what Content Safe does and what it currently does for content creators and where you're heading with Content
sure.
Safe?
At the moment, what we do with content safe is we take videos from a source, and that source can be YouTube, it could be Rumble, Odyssey, it could be pretty much any of the platforms, but the primary ones that we're pulling from now are YouTube, Rumble, Odyssey, Rockfin. And then we distribute them to a bunch of other places, the same platforms. We can even do YouTube now. We can do YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok. Uh, and what this gives us an opportunity to do is we created a pipeline. So whenever a video comes out of a system, we could transcribe it. In fact, I'm just talking with a company that rents out GPUs, and I'm going to be trying out that company hopefully this week or next week, so that I don't have to buy all the GPUs to make this transcription process quick. Not only can we transcribe it, we can intentify it, so we can identify all the entities inside of it, names, places, all of that, so that we can then index what's this video talking about, and we can summarize it.
Cool. So you could take that data and you find out someplace through the video, some guy's talking about some random thing, you name it, some virus or something that pops up
Right.
in the middle of some discussion, and you just do a search on it, and you could actually jump to that part of the video.
There you go. I've been thinking about this since Christmas of 2022. Whenever ChatGPT rolled out in, I guess that was pretty much beta at that point. And I was looking at how could I get an Elasticsearch instance that would index all these entities and text and then a time reference. Well, you could do it. I mean, there are libraries to do the entity extraction, and you can identify what place in the video. You can timestamp down to the word level and have an approximate timestamp for a word.
Where will you put this information?
You could
Um,
put it in Elasticsearch in a vector database.
okay. What I mean is, it'll be very useful for somebody watching one of the content creators' videos. Will that work with any of the existing platforms, or will it be
Now,
something
it,
they would have to go to Content Safe to?
that's probably what's going to happen. Or we could create embedding so that we could put it in their website.
Could we get it on IPFS too?
That's a good question.
That'd be really cool because
Vector,
then you've got
it
this thing
would,
that's nobody can take it down, right?
what would be even probably even more effective is some sort of chained file system that CensorGuard could then pull onto your unit, and the search would be available over the appliance.
Yes.
That would be cool.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That'd be really slick.
And if you know, another thing, someone's actually he who shall not be named again has he and I've talked about a replacement for DNS, and I'm actually trying to get in the
Oh,
position to write a paper for the next generation on DNS.
oh, cool. Yeah, I'd be interested in hearing what you're working on there because that's an important part. It's something I included in the content creators attack surface when I created that video a little while back, which was DNS. I mean, it doesn't matter if all your stuff's out there if nobody can access it. I mean, they even have the address, but it's a URL. It's not an IP address, and it's easy to just deny giving people the IP address. They just can't access the data, right?
Right now, a side step to that is Brave browser. I mean, Brave does allow you to directly address IPFS without going through a gateway.
I did
So
not know
that
that. Okay.
yeah. And
Hmm.
that's something we should be doing more with, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because gateways can be blocked, or you can get legal orders at a gateway. But down at the browser, that's getting a little bit harder to do that.
Okay. Yeah, if you've got that sort of capability right there at your fingertips, and that's a great thing, but you have to have cataloged it right so you can go back. Um, so it's like you went to a site and you purposely cache I think that probably happens to some extent anyways, right? It probably caches
Mm-hmm.
what the actual IP address is. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you run into problems where you need to wipe your cache and go back in. Um,
Well,
hmm,
you've got an OS level DNS cache
okay.
that yeah, which I have actually for the longest time, local DNS for me was a pain. So I was always using Google DNS or one of the open DNS because it was actually reliable.
Okay. Good to know. All right.
So the after that's one step. The next step is go to a full large language model. And let's say that I have the work of Mae Russell and it's all been transcribed, the entities have been extracted. I could now build a bot that could answer a question like she would have answered it in her shows. And I
Gotcha.
think people like Corbett and people who have a lot of followers that don't have time to answer everyone's questions would be interested in something like that.
Right. He's opined before that people will gravitate to the episodes talking about the problem and never as much about the solution. But then what happens is that he gets asked a lot of questions and he winds up having to repeat the same stuff again and again. It's like, oh, it's covered on this episode over here. But even then, if you've got an episode that's, I don't know, 30 minutes, an hour, a lot of people aren't going to have the patience to wade through that to find the gold nugget. So what you're doing would be really valuable for that. And then again, so it'd be an AI query. So you'd basically say, well, language model, whatever. But the bottom line is you'd basically tell it, ask it a question, it would answer back, maybe even point you to the index where it was brought up, or it might even just try to answer your question, like you said, in that individual's voice, right?
Well, the demo that was shown to me, and actually it was another person from Exit Group that was the got the GPU leasing company.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He showed me a demo, and that's exactly what it was doing in their demo. Is it would show you like where did we get this answer from, and it would show you the blocks that it generated the answer from.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, and the ability to lease this from them rather than you owning the equipment. Now, I, from a CFO standpoint, the keeping costs down, the leasing would be good. But securing your data and making sure it's in a jurisdiction that's harder for it to be censored is another problem. And and that's why these are all, in my mind, I hope these things are temporary. We need to be building AI systems that people own
Yeah.
and that they're not cloud based.
Another Ernieism, which is you want Jarvis, not Hal.
Right. Right. And
You,
unfortunately, what we have right now is sorry, Dave.
I'm afraid I can't do that, Dave.
Yeah,
Open the pod bay doors, Hal. 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 I'm sorry, Dave. Yeah, next thing you know, you got to take the thing down. Yeah, so that's where you think you're going in the near future. You have any other kind of big picture things you'd like to see in the future to protect content creators or to promote liberty in general or I don't know, pick the
well,
topic.
I, I think that there's a space here, even though we've got a lot of people doing platforms. We got Bright, Eon, BitChute, Odyssey. I think none of these have actually been done as well as they could have been done. Now, I'm not criticizing. I'm understanding they filled a gap and they had limited resources to do that. But I think this year there is enough interest because of the zeitgeist that money could be put together to make an absolutely awesome video platform that is open and isn't censored and isn't easily manipulated by governments. And I know I've talked to some people about this, and we think we've got the right assets in place to do it. We just need the money. That's the thing. It is going to cost some money to do it.
I'd be
I think
interested
that's
hearing more offline from you on that.
sure.
And maybe
Hmm.
maybe I could help roll up my sleeves to help pitch something. If the
Well, I
thing
tell
is,
you, hmm
everybody
he,
recognizes where we're headed right now. We're heading into an
yeah.
election year. We've seen a highest level of authoritarianism that this country has ever seen. Um,
Hmm.
and that's not even a partisan statement. Honestly, I know a lot of people say, "Well, this current administration is terrible, and the Republicans will be next will be better." And it's like, do you really believe that?
No,
It's been a
no,
ramp. It's never backed down. It's always gotten worse throughout my life, and
that's right.
it doesn't really matter if the major parties are elected, which is very, very likely the case, then it's just going to continue down the same path and censorship will get worse. And some of it's going to be tit for tat, by the way. Some guys will censor one thing and then you swap administrations and they censor the other thing. But as we head into this year, we know based on the current administration, based on the current deep state that's in place, based on the infrastructure that's been put in place, basically a turnkey police state, right? We know where we're headed in 2024. And we've already seen them trying to basically protect democracy by making sure people have fewer choices, right? Um,
Hmm.
the 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 crazy stuff that's being pulled right now is just going to get worse between now and November. So
Yep.
I think this is a really good time to pitch something like that. So just saying.
Well, I think we all agree on that. And I think that you know I deal with a lot of content creators, and one thing that I'm getting universally is even the ones who traditionally would have been Republican are saying things like, you know what, I'd rather talk about how individuals can empower themselves and protect their families and their communities than I would promote election integrity. Because I feel like I'd get more out of promoting them protecting themselves than I would telling them how to keep people from cheating in the election. It's like elections are a con. They really are a con. They've
Well,
always been cheating. This isn't
yeah,
new. They've always been cheating.
it's human
It's just
behavior,
that.
or I mean, human
Well, it's
nature, right?
just that Generally speaking, as long as society is fat and well fed, they don't care.
Mm.
As long as it
Well,
doesn't interrupt their life all that much, they
well,
don't care. They don't care who's president.
Well, the more that's at stake, the more they're going to cheat, right? Um,
Yep.
the thing is that more and more, back to our whole decentralization versus centralization discussion, the same has happened with government. It's become more and more centralized, even though you're supposed to, once upon a time, have had federalism in the United States, right? More and more power in the federal government. And what happens is there's so much at stake. I mean, back in the day, back if you followed what the Constitution actually says, you know, uh, there'd be a lot less at
Well,
stake, a lot less interest in who got elected because they can't do that much.
forget the Constitution. Let's go back to the Articles of Confederation and let's have
Yes,
unanimity that you can't change anything unless it's unanimous. Wow,
right.
like, oh, that would slow everything down. Well, of course. Why do we need to go faster? We don't
Thank you very
need to
much.
go faster, right?
Yeah.
It's like
Well,
we need to progress. Why do we need to progress? Tell me for a minute. Why do we need to? Is there a reason? Is there an
you,
end to this?
yeah,
There is no end.
who needs government to be more successful? Well, and you're right to go back to the Articles of Confederation because the Constitution itself was a coup toward more centralization of power. Absolutely for sure. Um,
Yeah. For me, I of course this is my more dreamy, idealistic side. I'm a pragmatist ultimately, but I do have a sort of idealistic, dreamy side. And that is, I honestly think that we should be right now. I think how many countries are there in the world, including micronations? 170?
on that order, just this side
I,
of
I think
200.
I think that there should be no less than 8,000 countries.
Well,
I
sovereignty
mean,
pushed down to the individual level is the ideal, right?
break them all up. And if you want to indoctrinate people in the fact that you don't combine city states. Never. You never combine city states.
Mm.
City states are sacred. They never get combined. That's my dreamy side. I
Hmm.
know it's not going to happen, but you know,
We might be able to
I
make
had this
steps in that
conversation.
direction, right?
Sure. Let's see what we can do. Uh, but I have a nephew that he's 16 years older, younger than me. And I brought this up to him. I said, we should have each county in the United States should have its own Congress and Senate. He's like, can you imagine how inefficient that would be? I said, that's the point. You don't want your government to be efficient. You want it to
No,
be inefficient.
absolutely. Gridlock is the free man's best friend. Something I've been saying for decades. Just gridlock is good. You want gridlock. You want lots of gridlock.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. We got a lot of crazy ideas about how life should be, which we're running out of time here. I think I got another call
exactly.
coming up.
Yeah. Is there anything you want to cover, Matt? Like I suppose where people can find your stuff and is there I don't know, that sort of thing.
ContentSafe.co is
Okay.
our site. You can go there if you're a content creator. There, you can schedule an appointment. We still onboard people. We still like to interview people before we bring them on board. Because I just think it's better to do it that way. I really like to know my content creators, and if I get more than I can manage, we do plan to probably have a 1:50, 1:100 ratio of admins.
Okay, got it. Yeah, I got it. That's definitely an important scaling thing to consider, right?
Yeah, and
Oh,
if you can probably keep track of 100 content creators for yourself. I figure I probably have 200 content creators that I randomly keep track of.
yeah, that's got to be quite a juggling act right there. And that's also why you are still looking for developers? And would you be looking for other people to help you with that process as well?
Yeah, I would say that our primary right now is getting a cluster of people that we could give jobs to, uh, just like micro jobs. Another reason I distributed the system was so that I could actually assign a concise piece of code to someone. Say, I need this to do this. Here's your inputs. Here's what your outputs have to look like. You take care of the stuff in the middle. And the other role that I can foresee is the admin, the person who kind of is the case manager for the content creator, because
What's the
I think that's important.
what's the best way for people to reach you, Matt, if they're interested in working with you on that sort of thing?
Well, you can reach me there through the onboarding form, or just look for at Matthew_Raymer on Telegram.
Oh, okay.
That's another way to reach me. But please, if you contact me through Telegram, make sure that you came because of Paracontrarian. Because if you just say hello, block, spam is going to be my reaction.
Okay. And that's, you said Matt_Raymer, and that's
Uh,
Raymer,
uh, Ma-
Raymer.
yeah, Matthew, my full name.
Matthew. I'm sorry.
Mathew_Raymer, Raymer.
Excellent. Well, hey, Matt, thanks a bunch for your time. Really do appreciate you joining us on Paracontrarian for this chat, and really had a great time talking with you. And I think folks are going to get quite a bit out of this discussion. And again, really appreciate your time. Thanks.
Likewise, I enjoyed it.
Thanks for listening to our content today. Please visit us at paracontrarian.substack.com for the highest level of detail and all the latest information. Be sure to sign up for a free subscription while you're there, at least. And that way you'll receive notifications when new material is posted. You'll also find our content on a number of other platforms, including YouTube, Odyssey, Rumble, and others. Please keep in mind that Substack is our primary platform where you're going to find the most detail and the most up-to-date information, and that Matt is maximizing our reach using his ContentSafe system, which is why you're seeing us on the other platforms. You can get this service for your own content by visiting contentsafe.co. Thank you.